kitchen. Now, this is the first video of 2021, so I want to start by wishing you all a very happy new year. Now, recently I've been seeing a lot of people starting using dried palm leaves on their cakes. Now, if you have followed me for a while, you will know that if I add anything onto my cakes, I love to make it myself. So in this week's video tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make these really pretty palm leaves from Gumpaste. Now we've got a spear-shaped palm leaf and also this sun palm leaf in the back. Now these are great on their own, or you can add some Gumpaste flowers along with them. Okay, let's get started. Now for my palm leaves, I'm going to be using some Gumpaste or floral paste, the same as I would if I was making Gumpaste flowers. Now I usually use the Squire's floral paste. I'm going to be adding a small amount of fondant to this, so 3 parts of my Gumpaste and 1 part of my fondant. The reason for this is it's just going to give us a little bit more time to work with that Gumpaste before it dries out. And as you can see, by using the Squire's floral paste, it gives you this elasticity which fondant doesn't have, which is going to allow us to create the folds in our palm leaves. Now the other tools that you're going to need is I've got some corn flour. I'm just going to use this for dusting so that my Gumpaste doesn't stick. I've got my rolling pin and my craft knife, some edible glue, some bamboo skewers so that we can attach the palms into our cake. I've got a small circle cutter. I've also got a airtight bag, or if you've just got an airtight container, to pop some of the Gumpaste in when we're not using it. And lastly, I've got my templates. Now I've just cut these out of a piece of card. For the first palm I'm going to create, this is going to be a spear palm. So it's going to be wider at the bottom, coming into a point. Now the shorter edge is going to be the height of our palm. So this one is going to be 4 inches in height. Now the measurement along the bottom, this one is 8 inches, but if you did want your folds quite large, then you could make this a little bit longer. For this one I've just rounded it up, so I've got 38 grams of my Squire's floral paste and 13 grams just of my white fondant. Now I'm going to be cutting out 2 of my triangles, creating 2 sides and joining them together. Now we want to get this Gumpaste as thin as possible, and it's always easier to do a smaller amount at a time. If your Gumpaste is slightly sticking, you can pop a small amount of corn flour onto your surface, but we want to try not to add too much so it doesn't dry the Gumpaste out. We're looking to roll this out large enough that we can cut out our triangle and thin enough that we can see our fingers through, so as thin as you can get it. So I'm picking that up as I go, making sure that it isn't sticking. Once that's rolled out, you can see it's really thin, slightly like a fabric. So I'm going to use my craft knife to cut this out. Now any excess, I'm going to pop this in my airtight bag so that it doesn't dry out. Starting at the bottom edge, I'm going to fold this over around 1/2 centimeter and just lightly tap on that. We don't want the 2 halves to stick together. We want it so it creates a fold. Now with your triangle at a right angle, we want to work up this straight edge. So just fold that Gumpaste back on itself, lightly tap that down and continue flipping it over each time. So we're creating a pleat as we work our way up. Get it slightly smaller, you might find it easier just to fold it over by hand. Now we've got quite a lot of bulk at the bottom, so I'm going to slightly open that out. You can see all those pleats. Taking my craft knife, I'm going to leave the first one and come in to the first pleat, and they're going to cut out a small triangle going to the center of the next one. So just using those folds as a guide, and I'm going to do this all the way along. And all this is doing is going to remove some of that bulk Gumpaste so that it fits together a lot nicer at the bottom. And then going to pull all of those pleats back together, slightly pinch, and this is going to fan out one side of our palm, and just pop this inside my airtight bag whilst we work on the other side. And the great thing about these is you can make them in any color to match the theme of your cake or the theme of the flowers that are going onto your cake. Now we want this to be the mirror image. So wherever you had the triangle the first time, flip it over and do it the opposite way. Now, if you find that your gum paste is quite sticky and as you're doing the pleats, they're sticking together, dust a small amount of corn flour over the surface before you start, and this will help those pleats come apart. Now, as I did before, as you can see, this is the opposite way. So I'm going in, just trimming off gum paste at the bottom. So the pleat that stays raised comes right to the bottom, and the one that is going to be in the back has the bottom trimmed off. And when I pull those bottom points, it starts to flare out. So I can bring back in my first one, and as you can see, we're starting to get the shape of our palm leaves. Now, where we have these creases on the top, if you want them a bit more defined, you can go in and just pinch those together. Now, to join them together, I'm going to open up that back pleat and just flip it over. They are quite delicate, so I'm going to take a small amount of edible glue and just place that at the bottom, join those two halves together, and I'm going to run a very small amount of edible glue just up that top edge, and I want to bring these two edges together and just pinch in that gum paste, join the two and carefully flip that over. So there we have the start of our palm. So you just want to open it up so you're happy with how that's looking. Now, the last thing is attach our stick so that we can attach our palms to our cake. Take a small amount of my leftover gum paste. Using my rolling pin, I want to come down on both sides to thin that out, but leave a raised section so it's nice and thin on the sides, and we've got this raised area which we can add our bamboo stick into. Take a small circle cutter, place this over the top, just cut that out, the pointed end into my edible glue, and just push this, and just pinch that at the bottom so you know it's nice and secure. Now, with some edible glue, I'm popping this over that disc. Bring back in your palm and very carefully flip this over and just pop that onto the back, just lightly pushing that in place so it sticks to those pleats. Pull that down slightly onto your stick. Lastly, at the top, the two edges that didn't 100% meet, so I'm just going to use my craft knife and just trim that off so that it comes into a point. So there we have our first palm leaf, and I'm going to leave this to one side until that gum paste and the edible glue has completely dried. Now, if you want your palms slightly bigger, all you have to do is make the template slightly larger. So this one is 6 inches on one side, so that's going to give me a height of 6 inches, and I've made the bottom 9 inches. So this is going to give me a slightly wider palm. So the longer that bottom edge, the more you can flare it out. You also have a lot of different options to get some different effects. You could make your pleats slightly larger or slightly smaller. You could pull them so they're further apart, or bring them in to give you a nice skinny palm leaf. Now, when you increase the size of your template, you'll also need to create more of your gum paste mixture. So for this slightly larger one, I've got 100 grams in total. So I use 75 grams of my Squire's floral paste to 25 grams of just my white normal fondant. Now, when you unravel it to cut the bottom, you know what side you're on, because you want to make sure that this longer edge is touching your work surface rather than coming up the opposite way. If it is coming up the opposite way, just flip that round. Now, if you are finding that your gum paste is sticking, one tip would be to just give your work surface a nice clean and make sure that it's 100% dry. The reason for this is once gum paste has stuck to a surface, it will always continue to stick to the same place until it's been cleaned. So then we have our second palm, which is slightly larger than the first one. And I've just opened that out a little bit more so you get more of a fan effect. So I'm going to pop these to one side to dry, and the next palm I'm going to work on is a sun palm. So for the sun palm, the only difference is the shape of my template. So instead of using a triangle, this one I'm going to use a rectangle. Now this one is 4 inches in height, so that's going to give me a palm, which the same as with the other ones is 4 inches in height. It's then 10 inches along the bottom. I'm going to be doing exactly the same as I did with the spear palm and creating 2 different ones and using one for the left and one for the right. So rolling out my gum paste, I've got this nice lilac colour, and I've created this just by mixing some of that pink raspberry with a small amount of blue. For this size sun palm, I've got 100 grams, so I've got 75 grams of my floral paste and 25 grams of my fondant. And you want to make sure that you've got an even thickness all the way through, so the middle of your gum paste is just as thin as those edges. I'm then going to do exactly the same as I did before, so creating my pleats, but I'm going to make these ones slightly bigger, so around 1 centimetre. Flip that over, so I'm going to carry on going down the entire width of that rectangle, just applying a tiny bit of pressure just to put those pleats in without squishing that gum paste down. Now I'm going to extend that out and just lightly trim off that last piece, so that it's also around 1 centimetre. Now this is the edge that I'm going to join, so you've got the last piece just touching down on our work surface. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before and just put in those shallow cuts, so cutting out some triangles so that it's less bulky at the bottom. Now for this one, we want it to look like a ray of sunshine, so I'm going to cut into this one on the other side, so on exactly the same part that we've cut this one, but instead of keeping it quite shallow, I'm going to cut in quite deep. So I'm removing a triangle which is around 2 centimeters, and you can go as deep as you like. Now it's going to be joining on this side, so I'm going to hold it between my thumb and my finger and just pull this side in. As you can see, we're starting to get starburst. Now I'm going to pop that into my airtight bag and make another one for the other side. Get this nice sunbeam. So bringing in my other piece, I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the other ones to join them together. So we want to join these bottom edges, turn it over, finding those 2 middle sections, apply some edible glue, and then we can pinch those together so there's no gaps. Now if this was going to be flat on your cake, you could keep the bottom flat or just open it out slightly to give it more of a shape. Now in exactly the same way as I did before, I'm going to use some of that excess gum paste and just create a disc for my bamboo skewer to stick in. There we have the sun palm. So I'm going to leave this one to dry with the rest of my palms. Okay, so my palm leaves have been left overnight, and here they are, all nice and dry. So they're nice and solid and they just keep their shape. So first of all, I've got 2 of the smaller spear palms. Now this one I actually folded the pleats with slightly bigger pleats, so even though it's exactly the same size, it just gives a slightly different effect. I've then got my larger light pink palm and also the lilac sun palm. Now you can leave these exactly how they are, so these ones all have a matte finish, but I'm going to add a bit of colour to them, and this is just going to bring them to life and create some depth in those folds. Now you've got some different options. You've got luster dust, which are going to add a little bit of shimmer, or you've just got normal edible tints that you use for dusting flowers. So first of all, taking my larger palm, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow at the bottom. So I've got a small amount of dusky pink edible tint, and on a really large fluffy brush I'm just going to push that into those grooves, so the darker shades are just concentrated at the bottom. Now on my palm leaf, when I push this into my cake, I'm going to see a small amount of this wooden bamboo skewer, and I want to make this the same colour pink. So I'm going to take a small amount of my pink gel colour that I used when I mixed up my gum paste and mix this with a small amount of white. Once you've got a similar colour, I'm then just going to paint this onto my stick. So I'm going to pop this one to one side to allow that stick to dry, but that's ready to add into my cake. For my next palm, I'm going to add a small amount of shimmer. So I've got two different luster dusts. I've got the hot pink and the diamond pink by Sweet Sticks. Now this one is the same color as my palm. I'm then going to use some of that lighter pink just on the top, add a small amount of highlight. Now you can do this with any color. So if you wanted to create an ombre effect, you could go in with some different colors, or if you wanted to make these gold, you can go over the top with some gold luster dust. I'm then gonna finish off my other two. The first one is this slightly lighter pink, and I'm going in with some of the blush tint from Sugar Flare. For my sun palm, I want to create a gradient going from pink to lilac. So I'm going to take some of the darker pink luster dust by Sweet Stick, starting at the bottom, brush this on, making sure that I also go just in those folds, bringing that colour up. The palms are now all ready to add onto our cake. Okay, so here I've got a 6-inch sponge cake, starting with my larger of the palms. I've then got one of the smaller ones, and this one is the darker pink, and I'm going to put this one in the front. So there we have all the spear palms, and lastly I'm going to put this sun palm in so that you can see it from the back. So here we have our cake with these finished palm leaves in the two different styles. I love how these look either on their own, or you could also incorporate in some Gumpaste flowers. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please give the video a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this and you're new to the channel, or maybe you haven't already, then don't forget you can always subscribe. You can hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will also alert you every time we upload a new video. So until next time, bye!